Retrieval operations for the crashed Cessna aircraft in Albay have been terminated after all 4 bodies were brought down yesterday from the wreckage site on Mayon volcano. We view these incidents through the perspective of aviation analyst Captain Patrick Roa, joining us now from New Mexico in the United States. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. What more can you tell us about this Alouette helicopter, which was used for a medical evacuation, which has gone missing in Balabac, Palawan?
Hello, Rico. Thank you for having me. The Alouette helicopter is basically a workhorse. It's a rugged helicopter that first flew in 1955, but it's been in production until the mid-70s, and until now it's being used all over the world. It has a light airframe, which translates to very good payload. They're very reliable, and they're very easy to maintain. We have about 3 of those helicopters here in the Philippines, as far as I recall.
So, Captain Patrick, where are these Alouette helicopters manufactured?
These are French helicopters. They were manufactured in France with what used to be Aerospatiale. After several takeovers, that is now known as Airbus helicopters. They're no longer in production, but they're still widely used because of their handling characteristics, their ability to carry those payloads. They're easy to maintain, and they can go anywhere. A lot of these helicopters are also operated in high altitude areas. Indian Kashmir, for once, uses a lot of these helicopters to operate in those remote regions.
And the search operations are currently centered around the Balabac, Palawan area. Have you flown around this destination previously, and what is the terrain like there?
Yes, a long time ago I was flying single-engine aircraft. I've flown around that area. That is in the southernmost tip of the Philippines. From initial reports, the helicopter was coming in from Mangsi Island, which sits right next to the border of Sabah, Malaysia. That is really in the southernmost tip. So this will be a water crossing, an ocean crossing, or a sea crossing for that matter, roughly about 50 kilometers. So this should be 25 or 30-minute flight to the main town of Balabac, where they were bringing the patient.
And what could potentially be the cause of a mishap, Captain Patrick, if one did occur?
Well, there's a lot of scenarios that can come into play. Right now, it is still a search and rescue operation, as the helicopter hasn't been found yet. We're still hoping and praying that they're still out there, maybe in a small islet or probably adrift. There's still hope. There's still chance that we can find the passengers and crew of this helicopter. There's a lot of questions that come to mind. The weather would come in as number one. Coming back to Balabac, definitely we're pushing against a headwind. Another point there would be, what would be the maintenance status of the aircraft? Was there any recurring issues with it? What was their fuel state? Based on the payload, when they carry about 5 passengers, when the payload goes up, definitely your fuel flow or your fuel demand from the engine would also go up. So that could also be a critical point. There's just so many things that come to mind that rescuers would be asking, and later on investigators will also be looking into.
And Captain Patrick, you've flown all types of aircrafts, from helicopters to light planes to wide-body jets. What kind of skill do you need when flying a helicopter?
Helicopter flying is very, very specific skill sets. These are not the same as what we call fixed-wing aircraft. They're designed to be dynamically unstable. So this is what they use for the aircraft, for the helicopter, to be more maneuverable, to be able to land in confined spaces. So this would require a lot of control inputs from the pilot. It is a different set of flight controls. Looks similar to a fixed-wing aircraft, but they operate a little bit differently. They're relatively safe. A lot of emergency procedures are trained into the pilot and how to handle this, but it's different from fixed wing flying.
And in light of these recent aviation incidents that have been taking place over the past couple of weeks, 2 Cessna aircrafts and then this Alouette helicopter, what can the government, CAAP, do to improve safety and reduce aviation incidents?
That's a very good question, Rico. First and foremost, we would advocate for the passage of the Philippine Transport Safety Board law. Even CAAP Director DG Skita May has pushed for this one. This would be an independent body under the Office of the President that would conduct investigations for all transport-related incidents and would do safety recommendations. And they would even investigate the CAAP itself, and the DG himself has been pushing for this one. This would be a very, very good, welcome legislation for the Philippines. It's right now in the Senate. Another thing would be this might be a good time for the CAAP to look into implementing what we call ADS-B, Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast Equipment, in all aircraft. Balabac, in the southernmost part of Palawan, for example, doesn't have much of air traffic control coverage. There's no tower there. But with an ADS-B equipment installed on board, we would have a better hold of tracking the aircraft with last known position, airspeed, including altitude. You can even view this from your phone or your iPad. This is how they track the private jets of the billionaires who are flying around the world. So ADS-B equipment. This came about from the Malaysian Airlines MH370 disappearance. And lastly, we need to also beef up our search and rescue operations in the Philippines by hopefully being able to conduct joint inter-service exercises. All service branches in the Philippines are also acquiring new aircraft and new equipment for search and rescue. This is very critical because this is not only for aircraft accidents, but this also reaches out towards the maritime domain, as well as the civil defense role for humanitarian assistance and disaster response. So those are the first couple of points that come to mind for this one.
Captain Patrick Roa, thank you so much for your perspective and for joining us from New Mexico in the U.S.